they are actually using very, very scientific techniques to get their data. What's the scientific method? Just to put that out there, you have a hypothesis, and you test the hypothesis, and you get results, right? Now, I'm with you on the fact that this is not going to work 100% of the time. But knowing that something is going to work at least sometimes is better than knowing that knowing nothing about it. That's my whole point.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yes?
There is a probability of failure since you can't just be 100% sure that it's a scientific method. It's like a trial and error analysis.
So authorship attribution is not scientific?
No, we're talking about this.
Well, I'm giving you an example. What is authorship attribution? You look at two different documents, right? And there's a probability that this document is, you know who the author is, and the probability that the author is not. Okay? The scientific method does not dictate that something is going to happen 100% of the time.
No, the point is, to prove that something is, to framework something, you have to prove it either scientifically, either mathematically, or either experiment.
Yes.
So you have three fields, and it's proven. Like if the three of them agree on this, then you can go with one approach. So you know that it's going to always succeed or always fail. You know what I mean?
Well,
This probability of success and failure does not fall under this umbrella. You know what I mean?
under this umbrella, like under information assurance, is it?
It's like we're talking about what I'm doing, like anonymity with cyber forensics or cyber crime is the scientific, it's scientifically proven.
So
I'm just commenting on this.
well,
point.
okay. But I am saying that the scientific method, in essence, does not mean that something is going to work 100% of the time. Okay? The scientific method is based on guessing that something is going to more likely happen. That is what the scientific method is. If you want to go back to the origination of the scientific method, to the time when it originated with Charles Bacon, okay? If you look at his theory of the scientific method, and if you want me to get into details about this, I will. The point is, the scientific method was basically, I'm going to observe something over and over again until something happens. When Kepler's laws of planetary motion came about, and that's physics, which is more of a natural science, what happened then? Basically, ingenuity, okay, which is imagination, was the key factor in him figuring out what the laws of planetary motion were. It was not a hard fact. It was him imagining something and then proving to himself that that's what happened. You, well, I'm not disagreeing with you. I have not disagreed with you that it's a guess or not.
You just said he made a false assumption. I don't think so.
No, he used ingenuity. Okay? He used imagination. He's like, I think this is, I believe, in my head that that's what it is. And it came out to be true after it got tested. Okay? What you guys are talking about is doing an experiment over and over and over again. Okay? Which is external validity. Okay? When you do something over and over and over again, and different people perform that, then if you get the same results over and over again, then you can try to say, yeah, it's more likely that this method is working. Yes?
What I think you guys are mostly arguing is the difference between theory and law, and the difference between mathematical and hard sciences, and sciences that involve human beings. Anything involving human beings, well, almost anything involving human beings, you're never going to get 100%, because there are always going to be that at least fraction of a percent where there's the exception of people. And then also, when you go ahead and you do enough tests, and you generally see a trend with people, and that's why if you look into most of the social sciences, and also in medicine, because even in medicine things aren't 100%, you have theories, unlike in other sciences where you have laws, because it is true, you can't prove 100% something with people,
Yeah.
but you can see trends from that research.
But my argument also remains that even in the computer science field, okay, and this is something to take to heart, things don't work 100% of the time right. Okay? Have you ever gone to a computer lab and the system was down? Yes. Was it working at that point in time? No. So you can't preach that this is 100% true. In fact, in physics, what happened in physics as a subject? Newton did all his laws, all these classical theories happened, and then what happened? All these theories were disproven, even though we still teach them in universities today. Because it turned out that the classical mechanics is not 100% right. And it turned out that you have to look at things at a smaller scale. You have to look at atoms, or you have to look at the smaller particles in order to get your answer to be right. Yes?
I'm going to switch topics a little bit here and get back on topic, I think.
How much time do we have left?
I have no idea.
So we have 10 minutes.
10 minutes? Okay.
My question is because this is an antisocial behavior cybercrime, how would you, in theory, look for it? How would you test for it in a laboratory setting if you're shining a light on it, so to speak? Is it kind of like knowing a particle's speed or a particle's energy level kind of thing?
Well, it comes down to one of two things, right? You can either do behavioral analysis, so you can look at someone's behavior, or you can do surveys. Because a survey is an instrument that's widely used, and if it's validated over time, you can kind of get close to getting a decent result with it. And there's one survey, to my knowledge, that I've seen that does that. I don't know about any other very good ones that have been validated, but I know there's one because I'm using it. Yes?
For some of these other, for some of the previous research in the area, what have they done to go ahead and how have they performed some of their research to go ahead and identify the antisocial behavior in
really,
groups?
what's happening is you have to start looking at antisocial behaviors in a new sense. You can't just, because what's antisocial behavior? It was regarded as someone drinking a lot or someone doing a lot of drugs. I mean, that's one example of it. And in fact, if you look at the surveys, they ask you those questions. But if you're looking at antisocial behaviors online, those are a little different. Okay, one of them could be child pornography, right? One of them could be misusing someone's name, identity. There's so many different ways of doing that online. And what you need to do is measure those things in order to get closer to what antisocial behavioral tendencies are online. So the definition is kind of changing slightly, right? That's my whole point. Is you can't just give someone a survey on are you doing drugs? And they might be correlated, actually. You don't know that, right? You have to test that. So I'm not going to make the assumption that they're not correlated, because they might be correlated.
That's the whole point, though. So the surveys might be correlated, might not be, but there's no way to do it. So with drugs, you can prove it by, let's test the drug in this person. Does it actually have a bad, effect on them?
But it might affect you differently than him, differently than him, differently than him, differently than him.
You see the results with the mind. You can do a survey, but you have to basically rely everything on a survey. So there's
Not necessarily. You might be able to do behavior also. So it depends on your experimental design. You can ask a survey, you can validate the survey with behavioral analysis. That is possible. Okay? And in fact, there's a system that was developed using the old methods like EEG, in which they are able to almost accurately predict what task you are thinking about. Go online and Google the guy that, have you seen the Wii Remote implementation that the Asian researcher did? It's the same guy. He has a paper published on that, and you can have a look at that. And they used a very cheap EEG, which is $1,500. It cost them $1,500 or so, and they were able to almost accurately predict the thought process of that person. It measures the voltage of your how I don't know how EEG works exactly, but it's like it takes the small voltage that your brain emits while it's thinking, and it's looking at patterns in that. It's reading the signals that your mind is emitting, and therefore associating those patterns with the task that you're doing. Yeah. Yes.
I wanted to know, you talked about anonymity. What are the researches happening? What are the other researches, and what trends are you looking at? Is it heading the right way?
I don't think so. I mean, I personally, from